This video is on advanced Excel shortcuts, and to understand what I mean by advanced, open up an Excel workbook and click on the Alt key, and you'll see a bunch of letters appear on the ribbon at the top. This one keystroke opens the door to hundreds of possible different shortcuts. Now, these will be more difficult to master than my essential Excel shortcuts, but these are the skills that will take your Excel productivity from satisfactory to pro. So what these Alt shortcuts allow us to do is select anything on our toolbar without having to use a mouse or trackpad. So when those letters pop up at the top, what they're referring to are the different tabs on that toolbar. So Alt H, for example, will select the Home tab. Another common one will be Alt A to select the Data tab. And one of the really nice things about these shortcuts is you don't have to hold down each keystroke. So for example, you can select Alt, take your hand off Alt, and then H, take your hand off H, and so on as you select more options. And you can always hit Escape to take you back one step in the process. So which of the shortcuts I'll be going over in this video should you memorize? Well, it could be all of them, or it could be none of them. It all depends on what you like to use and what will save you the most time. So we've just queried this data, and I want to copy paste our data into our blank raw data sheet here. So to select the entire array, we can select any cell within the array and do either Control A or Control Shift space, then Control C to copy. And to toggle one sheet over to the right, we can do Control Function down arrow. And now for our paste options, we have Alt H for the Home tab, V for the paste menu, and I want to paste values and number formatting. So that will be Alt H V A. Another very common one will be Alt H V V, and that's your classic paste values. And if you want to pull up the entire paste special menu, that is Alt H V S. So let's go ahead and put this data right into a table with Control T, hit enter, and I'm going to name this table orders. And the only table formatting step I want to perform is auto fitting the column width so I can see all of my data. And that shortcut is going to be Alt H O I. H for the Home tab, O for this format dropdown, and I to auto fit the column width. And now that our data is ready to go, let's create a simple sales overview dashboard. So in a new sheet here, let's start by formatting our title text. So to change the font size, we're going to do Alt H and then FS for font size. And let's bump this up to 40 and hit enter. Now to change the font color, let's give this a nice dark blue. So we'll do Alt H and then FC for font color. And if you don't want to touch your mouse or trackpad, you can use the arrow keys to get to the color you want. And I want this dark blue here. Then let's make this bold and underlined. I've now added some summary statistics from our data. So first, let's go ahead and start by bumping up the font size to 16. So Alt H FS and hit 16 and enter. Next, I want to make this cell both bold and italics. Now I want to merge and center our cells here. So selecting this cell which actually has the text as well as the others we want to merge. And our shortcut is going to be Alt H M C. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for our next three summary statistics. So Alt H M C, Alt H M C. And another trick we can use here is when we pull up that menu with Alt H M, we want merge and center, which is the first one, and it is already selected here. So we can also just hit enter. Next, let's give this a nice background color. So Alt HH to pull up that menu. And using the arrow keys, I want to select a nice light blue here. Lastly, let's give this a border. So Alt HB to pull up the border menu and then A for all borders. Next, I want to create what is basically a dynamic pivot table where the user has the option to select the value between total revenue, order quantity, and average revenue per order for the country versus is subscriber. And if you want to see how I did this, I will have a link to this file down in the description below. So let's create our data validation drop-down list to give our user those three options. We're going to do it in this cell right here. And remember, Alt A takes us to the data tab. So our shortcut for data validation is going to be Alt A V V. And we want a list. And our source is already ready to go over in our keys sheet, which is to the right. So our shortcut to get over to that sheet will be Control Function down arrow. And let's select our three options. Hit enter, and now we can test this out. So this is going to be total revenue by country and is subscriber. We have average revenue per order and order quantity. And you'll notice with our array here, we already have these numbers formatted in dollar formatting, which makes sense for the first two options, but not as much for order quantity. So let's conditionally format these based on what we select here. So for conditional formatting, to pull up that menu, it's going to be Alt-HL, and then we want a new rule, so N, and let's format based on a formula, and our formula is going to be when this cell here is equal to order quantity, and in that case, let's perform number formatting, and we want a separator just in case with 0 decimal places for the count. Hit OK and OK again, and there's our conditional formatting. So next, let's go ahead and center all of these cells. So to center cells, it's going to be Alt-HAC. And then let's make this yellow, the fill color that is, so Alt-HH. And let's go down to that yellow fill color to make that nice and obvious. And I want to add a note on this selection too. So the shortcut to create a new note is going to be Shift F2. And for our note, let's say select a value in the drop-down list. Right. Now we can go ahead and add some borders as well. So let's select all of this here. Alt-HB for borders and A for all. And then let's make this a gray fill color as well. So Alt-HH, and we'll select this light gray here. And this is a dashboard, so we need a couple visualizations as well. So I want to be able to see what times of the day we're getting the most orders. So to show that distribution, let's create a histogram of order quantity by our order time variable here in our raw data sheet. So to select that column, we can select any cell in the column and hit Control Space. And to insert a histogram, it is Alt-N to get to the Insert tab and then SA for histogram. And we can hit Enter to select that first option. Control-X to cut that chart. And then let's toggle over to our dashboard sheet and Control-V to paste. Finally, let's show total revenue by day. So we need a pivot table. And to insert a pivot table from a table or range, we can perform Alt-NVT. And our table name is orders. And we can put this pivot table on our existing worksheet right over here and hit Enter twice. So we want order date, and for our value, order total. And let's do Alt-JTN to give this pivot table a name, and we'll call this daily revenue. So we have our formatted pivot table, and now let's visualize this data with a pivot chart. So to insert a pivot chart, select any cell in your pivot table and perform Alt-JTC. And this is time series data, so we want a line chart, and hit Enter. And let's just go ahead and put this chart right over top of our pivot table. And this is the final product of our dashboard. So that is the end of the video today. If you haven't seen my Essential Excel Shortcuts video yet, link to that will be down in the description below. Make sure you check that out, as well as the link to this file if you are interested. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching.